Hello, hello, hello. Okay, there we go. All right, that's one. Where's my other? There we go. Okay. Now, last one. There we go. Okay, cool. So, I've always been a proponent of using AI. I do enjoy AI. There are some caveats with using AI, but as a designer, there's kind of like a technical knowledge and a designing knowledge. You can't just jump in and work it through. So we're going to go over how I generally use AI uh, in my workspace as a designer. So I have a goal. Let me kind of set up here on the chat side. Keep an eye on attendees, like so. Okay. So I basically want to fulfill some gaps in some things. For instance, I have an image that I took apart, which is an old image of me that, well, pretty old, aka young, I guess. Um, that I used or I took a long time ago at Valencia. Now, I want to essentially split this image into two pieces, right? I want to fill in the rest of that brick wall, and I've been thinking of making like one of those gamer avatars with the main image here. But there are some things you got to start off with. First, as a designer, you probably have a Photoshop or potentially have used a Photoshop-like program. I'm a huge user of GIMP. It is one of my daily applications. You can see it down here. GNU image manipulation program. If you don't know what it is, you've been missing out for years now. It is basically a free Photoshop. It's an open source Photoshop that does everything Photoshop does. The only difference is Photoshop has a lot of like automated scripts that follow filters. Like you've got your typical filters here, right? Blurs, enhancements, distortions, and so on and so forth. But GIMP doesn't have a lot, and you can potentially make yourself with some Python, right? That's pretty cool. But you don't have like the scripts that'll apply one after another to create a specific type of effect. Now, we can do those same effects by taking the steps that would basically be that scripted step-by-step process. So, in a general sense, you can still apply exactly the same types of filters to GIMP-based environments that would be available in Photoshop, but you would have to do them manually. And that's really the biggest difference here, right? What I've done is I've created a path around the edges of this image, and I have given that path a selection, convert path to select. I've cut out the image like so. I've already done it, so it's kind of like not going to do anything right now. And then pasted it into different places. I'm not going to re-show the process because if you know how to work with paths, or if you're interested, that can be something that we can go over in the future. This is more of the workflow that I normally do when it comes to using AI in my general designer workspace. So there's my GIMP, and then on the second hand of that, or the second steps, I have a configured invoke AI server that I am trying to use to basically fill in those gaps. This one's not so good, so I'm gonna take that out. Uh, I tried, and this is gonna be really just gonna be a play on prompting. I'm just gonna essentially work on prompting, get used to some keywords. But here's the fill-in, right? In there. You can see kind of like from the cuts created here, it took a decent sized section up in this corner, and I replicated it just to kind of fill in the gap of the humanoid shape because the AI will essentially try to fill whatever it identifies in this missing space. In many cases, that's basically a silhouette of a person, so it starts to try and fill in people. So I have some prompts and a completion prompt. Taking the given image parts, complete the pattern, atmosphere, environment, and that's kind of what I'm playing with. I'm trying to fill in these details and try to see if the AI can basically try and fill in the missing gaps. And it does a good job. You can notice right here, it does a good job filling in this brick. It tries to basically fill in some others, but then there are some caveats. There's some oddities that maybe you didn't notice or didn't quite fill in well. Now, this is where Invoke AI's environment, it's almost like a Photoshop inside of a image editing. We can use these little masks. These are absolutely fantastic for selecting what we want to modify. In this case here, probably do a little bit of here just to kind of get that cut out of the way so it doesn't look so cut. And well, basically most of it, right? Because it's still not so good. I do kind of like up here. It fits well. Just gotta clean up the edges on this section here. So I'm gonna keep that. And then I'm going to adjust a denoising strength. Now I haven't gotten used to a lot of the knobs and options here, so I'm playing around with these two. These are the scheduler types, so you can use Keras, you can use um, a bunch of different algorithms basically. I haven't quite figured out which one's best for what, but I do know the ancestral ones are very good for biological, like animals, humans, plants. So now I'm trying to figure out the more urban algorithms that'll have a better chance at working out. So after I kind of select the denoising strength, I will use the invoke command to begin, making sure that my staging generations are on the canvas, not being saved, so I can continuously work on this image as it generates. Now, this case, I believe, is going to be more of the CFG scale. You'll notice that there's a lot of kind of contrasting difference between the bricks now, including gaps in the bricks, including these sort of fill-in spaces. It's not bad, but it's also not good because that's not the type of brick we're doing. So I'm going to reduce the CFG scale and try again. Now you'll notice this is basically the AI taking that input that was given through the mask and modifying it. I'm not liking what this looks like down here already. So let's see what this ends up being. Well, not too shabby. The top is looking pretty okay. So I might keep the top and then go to my raster layer and erase this here. It's because I don't like that huge gap. And that's the workspace in the case of trying to fill in something that we're looking for, a feel of the wall that we're trying to adjust for. Sometimes it'll pop in some random shapes. I tried to do a doorway a couple of times, which was very interesting. Let's see. I do really enjoy kind of staring at what it tries to generate. Hmm. I kind of like that. Let's see, let's see. Some of it's bad, so this is bad right there. I'm not feeling this part here, and potentially it might just be too much denoising. So denoising basically takes as much of a, well, what is noise? Let's go ahead and take a look at what our filters and noise will do. Or maybe not that one. Noise is basically throwing in a random set of colors and hold on. Oh wait, hold on. No, that's not it. Let me make a new layer here. Oh, there we go. Maybe? No? Some of these need a beginning value. So let me draw something. Almost like a blur type. Spread. There we go. So it's like a blur, but it just takes apart the image currently, right? So what the AI will do is essentially start from a pretty noisy space, like so, and then denoise it over and over randomly until it creates some sort of image. And as it denoises in a random sense, in our case, we know what this image is. It's just a line going through here. However, the AI will take that denoising process and try and match it to the prompt, to a humanoid shape based on its training, and so on. That's the general sense of what a denoising will be, the reverse of noise. So maybe it's too much noise, it's generating too many random things, so I want it to be a little less random and a bit more structured. So I will reduce the denoise. The zero point 0.5, I can easily say, is a pretty decent place for a type of yeah, see the top looks nice now. Top looking better. So I'm gonna remove the paint here, the mask. I'll probably keep it there in that corner. I will remove this oddly colored brick space. But the zero point 0.5 is very half and half. You can think of it as 50%. It's going to keep 50% of the structure of the original image, and the other 50 is essentially going to noise it up and try to modify it. Until you play around with the denoising, you may essentially need to kind of get a good feel. I like to stay between 0.35 and zero point 0.5. There we go. That's getting good. How's this over here? Not so good as an obvious change, but it's good enough for me to kind of work with this level of denoise of 50%. Still getting this weird colored brick over here. So I'm going to remove that. And as I'm sticking with the zero point 0.5, I'm going to essentially remove the parts of the image that I'm satisfied with, at least for the first round of modifications. So we're kind of getting there. It's all right. It's not bad, but I do want to adjust this section. It's very out of the area. So if I use less noise, like it's going to make this space even more contrasted. So you're going to see a higher uh, detailed separation in this section. This kind of look more less contrasted actually. So let's try it again. Let's see if it'll blend it together. But the important part is lower noise is going to keep the general pattern of the background. So the lines that are connecting will connect pretty well. There is a problem here. It's starting to lose the connection in this section. So I'll probably increase the noise and kind of try and get a better generated set of bricks in this section. Potentially, hopefully, because it's all random, right? You kind of have to keep doing it over and over. You will hopefully get a good connected value so you can kind of see the bricks are starting to line up here. That's not too bad. Now these are standing out more, give or take, but then there's the next step. We can take an actual brush, Alt click on the color that we like, and then try and connect the bricks that we want to essentially fit together well, using the colors related. So Alt click to get the eyedropper. Uh, might want to go down here again because those are off color there. And if I do that though, I'm going to reduce the noise and potentially here I'm going to connect more of these nice lines, go over this weird reflection, maybe fill in these gaps with a lighter cemented space here. Maybe throw a line here for for the pattern, and maybe throw a line here for that pattern to separate the bricks. Let's see, this one I want to connect, so I'm going to give that a little bit of a highlight. This probably wants to connect or should connect, like so. And I'm going to add the mask on those places that I want to modify. I'm going to maybe kick it around 35, 45. I'll go with 404. Let's go 35. I like 35 as a very consistent, nice, smooth yet appropriate fill for me trying to connect an image to the area. Sometimes not so much, so I'll go boost it up. I'll end that and go to 45. Better, kind of odd over here, but it's not too shabby. It does kind of leave a blur, which I'm not a fan of. I'll probably get rid of this. That's good. Hmm, where is that? So now I gotta find where this weird off color. In fact, I don't even have to go crazy with the off color. I'll grab a brick color, take the brush down to an opacity, and on the top layer, I'm gonna give it that color that it's missing, just like that. Maybe a little bit further from here to here, and just fill in the color that it's not generating correctly. Then I'll go in with a smaller denoising strength. And if I do a small denoising, I will increase the steps, therefore kind of fortifying the generating continuality. Basically, it's going to go for longer, do more of a modification over time. And even though there's small denoising strength, it's going to really get the details going when we're doing higher steps. Depending on the graphics card, though, that's the key here. Having a graphics card is going to be the essential for using this. And noticing here, we're kind of working it out well. The bricks just not making much sense, right? You can tell the bricks over here are much more elongated. Here, I might want to realistically kind of create a little bit of a seep through. Modify some of my bricks here so they don't look so out of place. The small bricks really don't make any sense. And you know what? When it gets to this point where it's just not fitting in well, I'll go ahead and build my bricks manually. So I'll take these, kind of try to randomize the color choices because these are pretty random as far as the bricks go. Uh, Now there is that line, tracking the line over, creating those connecting factors here. Pick a decent orange color here. Fix this weird brick here. Continue this. So it kind of looks like we're just doing paint, right? Paint.exe for those that know. I do hate that it doesn't have like straight lines as far as tool sets. There should be more tool sets in Invoke AI, but it is a pretty developing program. after you install it, and I think for me it takes about a good man, it takes a good 100 gigabytes of space, including the models that I'm using for the modifications. So it's not a cheap on the resources type of editing. You can't just install it on any computer. At one point, Photoshop was not the cheap way, right? A lot of people had to have special rigs just for Photoshop and editing in 3D and all that jazz. Well, now the next step is having AI be a part of your workspace, which includes a decent graphics card. The faster the better, of course, but for me, I have a 3070 and it's been doing a great job thus far. So now I'm just kind of building the bricks, trying to keep them simple, keep them straight to the point and relative to the overall feel. Let's see, this brick should be a full dark tone. This one should be a little like that. And I'm going to try one more time, but I really wanted to do the other case with the other image. So I will do this. If I'm selecting a majority of the image, I'm probably not going to go too crazy on the denoise because it can completely randomize the whole thing, and probably turn down on the steps. And let me just take the CFG scale down so it's a little bit more consistent. Now I might have to go through a couple of these since the actual paint that we went through doesn't get, well, spread out enough in some cases. So I might take a couple of steps or manual frames activations here to see if I can keep blending in the colors I've added. Maybe increase it to about a 4 or 5. If I go beyond 0.5, it really does become more random. Oh, okay, maybe. So I don't want to really go too much random when it comes to the imagery. Now it's so... Okay, so now it's fine. It looks okay, but there is that sort of fade that you'll see in the bricks, right? I'm seeing the fade. This as well, tone it down to about a zero point 0.1 or 2, increase the steps and increase the CFG. This will give it a bit more contrast when it comes to separating colors and truly kind of creating a less faded out image. And I have to potentially go over it a couple of times. Maybe increase a little bit on the denoising strength. Let's do a little bit higher. Let's do 0.3 denoise. At this point, I'm experimenting. I haven't gotten used to those particular knobs, like I said before. Gaussian blur might actually be better as a box blur. I'm not sure. DDIM might not be the best for these particular bricks. I might have to use Keras. Now it's getting more and more faded. Not a fan. So I'll Control Z back a bit. And let's try out another Keras at maybe 0.2. Now, some of these algorithms will take a lot more processing. You notice this is going to take a lot more time. Also, the models that you choose, depending on the type. Right now, my model is a Cyber Realistic version 4.1, but I do have a Dream Shaper XL Turbo, which is a huge model. And actually, maybe I need to use the Flux. Flux is a pretty good generator. So like the Cyber Realistic is only 2 gigs, but you look at Flux, it's going to take even longer to generate under the current situation. So let's try it out. Some of this is going to be a waiting game, but I mean, in the case of adding it to your tool set, you're still using things like GIMP to modify an image or extract certain content from that image, and then using AI to overlay a little extra randomness or completion. Uh-oh, hold on. That's huge. Yep. Wait a minute. That's a lot of noise. Oh no, I did 100 steps. That's probably bad. Hold on. Too many steps. And also, why did the whole thing go crazy? I did not select. I did select though. Hmm. Flux. Yeah, some models, depending on your PC, like 3070 graphics card, it's still good. But I mean, let's look at the hardware on what's happening in the background, right? Because we're using AI to generate this. My graphics card is probably up to his A on the 100%. All available gigabytes are being used of memory. Holy crap, my GPU is on full throttle. AI is a heavy duty thing, right? Having like a multi-card rig will probably be really good, or having anything above 12 gigabytes of GPU memory. So if anyone's ever building uh, a perfect or a decently usable AI rig, I do recommend going around a 12 gigabytes. 8 would be minimum if you want decent models. Like again, you can use the cyber realistic 2 gigabyte that basically um, uncompresses to about maybe 6 gigabytes of video card space, but something like Dream Shaper, you kind of multiply it by 3, and that's going to be about 21 gigabytes of RAM that you would potentially need to run this smoothly. Right now, we're doing the Flux Schnell, and that sucker is really, I'm debating if I should even continue in that direction. It hasn't even started generating yet, so let's go ahead and call that off. Let me see what the turbo does here. And image size, right now the image size is about 720 by 960. Bigger images, bigger, um, well, bigger amounts of memory you will need. You got positive prompts, what you want it to do. You have negative prompts, what you're trying to avoid it from doing. Sometimes when you create humans, hey, watch scene, what's up? I'm kind of showing how I take my general designing sense or designing workspace and applying AI to it. In this case, I've taken my image here, old image I have from its original, which was basically this. I've extracted myself from the brick wall, and I'm using this brick wall and to try to basically fill in the gaps in the middle. So the turbo is working a lot better, actually. That's nice. That's nice. So I'm trying to not only kind of show the workspace or workflow with AI, how we can benefit from the AI. It's still not that good. It's not as good as Cyber Realistic. That's fine. Cyber Realistic much quicker. Dream Shaper. I'm gonna keep going with this. How we can use AI to essentially fill in gaps. So I'm gonna keep this here, but here's what I really wanted to do, right? This was the kind of meat and butter. I'm gonna remove these. I want to take the image here, drop it in my canvas, and I wanted to create one of those stupid what do they call them? Gamer streamer images. I have a lot of friends that have those weird things. So I guess we can kind of start with like a empty canvas just to take an idea. A gaming streamer banner with vivid colors. I'm gonna remove the negative prompts. Um, and I might want to make this a bit more wider because normally it's a banner, so we're looking at about 900 to maybe 500 pixels, something like a wider scale here. And I'll throw that in. Hold on. I am doing completion, so let me get rid of that prompt. Eh, I guess that's a decent banner. But we got to be specific. That's kind of gay. Look at the. It doesn't do good text though. That's the bad part, right? So this is what it created out of nowhere. That's pretty cool, I think. Pretty decent. You can modify the text in GIMP or something. This guy is a little fudged up. But this is actually a good key to realize I didn't really have a lot of denoising strength on this. If I increase the denoise, it's going to start adding a bit more detail or potentially separating some of the values. This looks a little cleaner. The text looks cleaner. We got some nice little controllers over here, so that's pretty cool. Still not what I'm looking for, so let's see. Colors with a person in the middle, uh, rocking out on a keyboard. Yeah, it's not bad. That's a weird, what? I guess that's supposed to be a mouse microphone or some-ish. So you're obviously gonna see some very weird. I don't know how it's making these choices. Let me increase denoising. Hold on. Create a new raster layer. We can also guide it, right? So if you take, let's say, I'll take this brush. I'll take maybe a blue base of a human silhouette. At this point, I do have to select my endpoint mask and throw this here. So now it knows where the positioning of the person is. Now I might not work on such a high denoising strength. It's not too bad. Then you can come in, patch it up, put some actual text in there, maybe an actual mouse. But the key is then you can take whatever you don't like, focus on it. Realistic mouse. Let's see if we can modify that to be more realistic. And it'll actually just modify that particular location. That looks better. A lot of keyboards and stuff, right? Let's take this here. Realistic keyboard. It looks nicer. It's still kind of like meh if you look into it in detail. And so on. Like this is just all AI generated. So you playing around with the details in this format, you're essentially expanding on the image, going through details. But that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to take this, my image, potentially make a banner for it. Now I might not need such a strong denoise. A a streamer banner for gaming with the player in the middle and a circuit board in the background. How about that? Circuit board in the background. So first, it's going to try and fill in the empty space already provided. It's not going to touch the regular image. Again, this is Invoke AI. You can set it up on a graphics card with, I'd say, recommended minimum to 3070, a minimum of about, I mean, 8 gigs is just barely cutting it. So I'd say recommended is like 12 gigs of memory. Hmm, let's see what it did. Nothing crazy, nothing crazy. I think the denoise is too weak. It did make an interesting silhouette around the person. It's still thinking in the case of finalizing the image, so we're kind of keeping track of this bar up here. Going, thinking. So I've only basically just extracted an image that I have from a long time ago. This is when I used to work at Valencia College. They had nice brick walls. I'm a fan of brick, man. I'd rather live in a brick house than anything else. Very strong, very structurally impertinent, impenetrable, something like that, some word of the case. So taking an image out, throwing it on here, working with that. Now, it may be the case that I'm using a pretty large what is it? A pretty large width resolution. So that might hinder the progress. And again, the better the graphics card, the higher the resolution you can work on. Now, I would normally, if I have a small graphics card, I would make the edits on a lower size system. So I'm going to make this a bit smaller here. So I'll probably make the edits on a smaller canvas. Oh, hold on. Now it's slowing down even my GIMP. And then upscale it later. Uh-oh. Hello. Hello. Uh-oh. Hold on. Hold on. Graphics card is dwindling. Hmm. Ah, wait. Uh-oh. The whole thing has crashed out. All right. Well, it's good to not overuse graphics at one point in time. So that's the issue there. Let's rerun that Invoke AI. Oh. Oh, there's the launcher. So let me go ahead and make this image smaller. I will scale image to probably about, I don't know, 500 and let that auto gen down. Maybe less, since I kind of want a pretty wide banner, but I'll export this as 2. So there it is, my 3070. You gotta have CUDA installed. And there's ways you can set this up on a pretty smooth basis, but it is a bit technical. So you have to have CUDA on your graphics card machine. And further in, you got to use TensorFlow and other Python-based packages. That there are, in some cases, automated installers, but even then, they're not perfect, and you could run into technical issues that if you don't know how to use, basically, um, Python, be a bit difficult to work with. Hold on. See, this is the last time I did this. This was the last attempt, which was not bad, and this was just a straight up prompt. This is basically what I was able to generate, and it's what I use on Twitch. But I wanted to kind of go in more detail, do a bit more than just that. Mm, hold on, where did I save this sucker? Source, online campaign. Oh, it's a different drive. Hold on. Mm-hmm. Take that too and drop it in here. Oh, or copy and paste. There we go. So that's decent. I gotta take our canvas around the image. Probably clean up all the extras I accidentally cut in there. There we go. Maybe the canvas now is too large. No, that's good because we want it to be a smaller image. So let's take the width down by about, let's get it to 1,000. I think with my card I can do about 1,000 by 700, something like that. The B box, the binding box, is kind of your main tool for focusing in the generator on what you want to work with. So the B box kind of gives you a type of canvas layer area that you can focus where you want the generator to work at. So if I remove this and go down here, it's not going to touch the face, but it's also going to save power. So it's not going to really think about this up here. But then the issue is it won't understand or may have a harder chance of understanding what the image is about because it's only going to process the torso. And if the image isn't clear on what that part of the image is, it's not going to import the face, so it's not going to register potentially that it is a torso of a body because the face is not going with it. So it does save processing, but it also doesn't include those particular parts that are outside of this B box, the binding box area. All right, so let's try it again. This time, smaller canvas, smaller image. Half, that's a 50% denoise, not too shabby. It's a weird kind of effect it's putting around the person. Let's do a little bit higher. So let's do 0.75. Now we're getting to something interesting. Okay, this is starting to look all right. Of course, since image generators are not the best at text, it's gonna try and replicate text, and it's actually doing a decent job. But when I tell it to actually like write something, it does some weird hyro like glyphics and stuff. Oh my God, it continued the hair. That's sick. Okay, what am I holding up? Okay, look, I got a little controller in the hand. I'm gonna keep this. Now, what if I want to define this a bit further? I'll take this, maybe give it less of a denoise, and maybe it'll focus in on that particular part, define the hand a bit more. Sure, I have 3 fingers, that's cool. And then this is not a controller technically. Let's expand that to a 0.5. So this is what you would like if you type this into Grok or Chat GPT or whatever. Those AIs will just try and take your prompt and create a whole image at once. Holy crap, I have armor on my arm. Why do I have armor? That's not, I mean, I'm not complaining, honestly. This is getting interesting. But with something like Invoke, it becomes more like a Photoshop experience. Let's give myself some armor on this side. If I do symmetry, it normally does a decent job replicating one side to the other. Uh, this way, you essentially have more control over the image and the output and the modifications you can do. This is interesting. I still, I'm still not sure what you're trying to do with that hand, man. I mean, I guess since it's a gamer thing, we can go in, drop in a bit of a, let's see, take this off. Let's make like a PS controller sort of shape, right? So we go like this. Maybe continue the finger because I'm not really liking the fact that I don't have a 4 finger case scenario over here. I'm having 3 fingers. So I'm gonna kind of give it a little guidance here on creating my extra fingers. Maybe it'll do it. I might have to reduce the denoise. I'm going to create my controller shape. Very simple. Like literally, it's kind of like doing just basic paint at this point. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is probably fix my fingers with a low denoise. Yeah, kinda. You're kinda getting it, buddy. Me talking to the AI. Okay. So maybe I want to connect. The issue here is that this is separated from just kind of giving off odd vibes of separation, which shouldn't be the case. Maybe create the extra knuckle it's trying to miss. So maybe create a knuckle here. Maybe the knuckles for sure kind of out of place. So let's do that. Knuckle, knuckle. That knuckle's fine, so that's all right. Gotta give it some guidance. It's not perfect. Again, why AI is a great tool, but not a replacement for creativity. You still gotta have a bit of a. I mean, from over here, it doesn't look that bad, right? Man, what are you trying to do over here? Hold on, hold on. Let's cut this off. Maybe reduce the denoising strength. Also, make sure to like, subscribe for programming, AI stuff, man. We go through random stuff sometimes. I like to show my workflow in many cases. Today, we're just doing a little bit of AI tool sets, and we're using Invoke AI. But I teach you how to program in Python. Futuristically, currently we're doing a lot of JavaScript-based programming, so you can learn the basics in programming through a very simple process. Trying to defining. Let's see. Getting wary. Oh, you know what? It could also be the CFG scale. I'm getting, the CFG scale is a very weird tool. It kind of gives things a bit more of a, yeah, I don't know, if you're working on a biological being, it tends to look a bit more, we're getting there. Let me do this, lower this, increase the steps. Let's see if we can kind of emphasize on the details now. You know what? Sure. For now, that's fine. That's fine. The next step I'll do is probably overgeneralize with higher desaturation. Also, I got to keep in mind the edge size can always leak outside of the mask that I'm using. For some reason, 8 is a decent one, but it doesn't happen. You can't select it with the up and down. It goes 0 to 16. But 8 is a decent edge size, so I just type it in manually. Let's see if we can do something with this controller. I may have to specify in the prompt a controller, but generally speaking, it can kind of determine. Oh, I did an extra steps, a lot of steps here. Nope, too many steps and probably too high denoise because you notice the shape changed. When the shape changes, it's too much denoise. So let's do a streamer holding a PlayStation controller. In fact, I might even just give up on that hand and let's go for the 45 and see if it'll adjust everything accordingly. I should probably put a negative prompt of 3 fingers. Oh, look at that finger, and that's not looking, no, not enough denoise. Higher denoise. It's actually pretty fun just to like watch what the AI decides to do. Sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's totally out of whack. That's better. I mean, give or take, I'm kind of not holding it correctly, but it does indeed look like something of a PlayStation. That's something. I mean, like, it's not that great. It looks like molded plastic. So, very interesting to watch. Let's see. The hand looks decent. I'll keep the hand because it's basically all right. I'm gonna do 0.5 because it's essentially almost done. It doesn't have to be a perfect PlayStation controller. I can go back in there with like a GIMP editor and add the buttons in manually. That's fine. AI can basically achieve 80, maybe 70 to 80% of what you're looking for. And then the other 30, 20%, you go into like GIMP and modify the rest, right? So now let's adjust PlayStation, holding a PlayStation controller, circuit in the background with vivid colors, because all of those neon colors are basically what defines um, those gamer banners. So at this point, I'm not going to select anything. In Paint, mask is empty, which is fine, which means I'm going to basically generate on the whole image. If you're not selecting anything, it does a full generated factor on top of what exists. 0.5 is decent. Oh no, it's going to change my face though. Now it's going to not even look like me. True. No, I look like a chick. Cool, I guess. Wow, look, I got the PlayStation logo. Sight Sion. The hand is weird. Don't like. All right, so let's keep. Let's. This is a tricky one because I want to make like a nice vivid set of colors. But if I'm gonna select the outside. Context dev, yeah, I have. Flux, it just takes a bitch to run. It's a 7 GB file, but recommended wise to generate on top of Flux, you need at least, I mean, minimally 12. I have 8 GB on my graphics card. I have a 3070, so it's not that impressive. But ideally, you would probably want double, which would be 14 GB. Or best case scenario for extreme usage, you would need at least 21, 3 times the size of the file to actually run it smoothly. And then the other things you can optimize is using an MV5 solid state drive because most of the data, because you can essentially use, I mean, back here, this shared GPU memory is basically my page file on my Windows machine, right? So I have a 6 GB page file, which it would be nothing. It would be absolute crap if it wasn't on a solid state based hard drive or hardware. Otherwise, if you do it on a regular hard drive, it's not even going to make much of a difference. So you're kind of like attempting to um, smoothen out the edges with hardware so you can try and fit as much power. So like maybe if I had a smaller image, I'd probably be able to use Flux pretty smoothly. What's up with all these motherboards? What am I selling motherboards over here? Well, hold up. All right. So maybe some guidance. Let's see if we can do some guidance. I do like this yellow happening up here. I do like the yellow boards. So what I can do now is, let's see, clean this up, copy or save this version to Canvas. Main, where to save? Oh, there we go. I can copy that sucker, go into GIMP, make a new, in fact, throw it there, image, crop to content, fit canvas to layer, there we go. Then I can basically crop this down. I do like the yellow, but because I can't do straight lines in, freaking, that's one thing. It doesn't have a lot of tools just yet. So what I'm gonna do, and invoke AI, not a lot of tools for me to do this stuff. So then I can move back and forth between something like GIMP, get a decent sized stop, brush going, too big. Is it blurry? It is kind of blurry. Am I not using, no, regular dot. There we go. And then I can kind of guide a circuit in the background, adjusting some of these colors. And you guessed it, kind of keeping them as straight as possible. You can also take images from other cases, right? You can take images outside, throw layover. Maybe I want, because I can see this yellowish circuit board in the background. That's pretty cool, but maybe, oh, you know what? I've always been a fan of, what is that? What is that? What is that pattern? When you have a workbench in your garage and you've got those diamond thingies moving around, there's that pattern, gosh, what is that called? The 1050 Ti was like, hell no. Hey, you can still run AI technically. I mean, you'll just be doing something like what well, yeah, 1050 is what, got 2 gigs or something? That'll make cyber realistic go pretty bad. You can still do like 1.5B models on text, which is still useful. I have that involved too, and not in the case of editing. But if I do an Olama run Mistral, you can do the 1.5B version. I do the 7B since the space that I have is decent. And you can basically have your own AI in your computer. What was that workbench pattern that is diamond shaped in metal for uh for a garage? I don't know, man. What the fuck is it called? Sounds like you're referring to workbench diamond shaped Greek key design at top. No, diamond shape is created repeating diagonal zigzags. DIY diamond pattern workbench in your garage. Pretty lame. It's also pretty meh as far as the case of diamond pattern workbench metal. This thing, seamless diamond. This thing, I want that, but I want this in a darker tone. I've always been a fan of that pattern for some reason. I like that. 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 I'm probably gonna take, ooh, grungy. So let's take this. I like that. Put it in its own layer. Scale it up. Try and keep the height and width decent. I don't like this outside simpleness or this left wall over here. So what I'm gonna do, make a path around it because I want to remove it. I'll keep the middle. I like the circuit board middle. Connect the paths, press enter to make a selection. And then from that selection, I'll grab my new layer here, delete that, probably give it a little bit of a unique twist with some adjustments to the mode. Maybe the vividness works well. And then I'll export that. Let me throw this over to something more local here. Pictures, workbench, Chris MIA, banner, export that. I hope I export as PNG. I prefer PNG in most case scenarios. Then can go back, remove what I was working on. It's already saved too in the background. Go to the file I just created, copy paste. Should still match. Good. Now I want to blend in with the in-paint mask. Now let's see, with a 50-50 denoise, let's see what that's going to do. Also the patterns of the circuit in the background. 4 gigs. You could. I mean, you're going to be waiting a little extra for cyber realistic, but again, yeah, 2.13 gigs. Doable is double the size of the model. Doable. It's just not going to be quick and snappy. So potentially you're decent on the gigs. You just may have to take a bit more time to wait for something like the cyber realistic. But honestly, as far as all the models that I've been using, cyber realistic is pretty good. Flux for sure is probably one of the whoa, that did the thing that I really like. I did not expect that. Holy cool. Okay. What are you? Where did my circuit go? But it's not bad. But what are you? I don't like that. It's a bit of a what the hell? Let's go ahead and get it out of the way. It's like a melted controller on the background there. Try to keep the colors similar to the adjacent spaces. Try not to make one giant blob of nothing. Okay, well that actually was pretty well. You sometimes when you're working with AI, you're not even sure what to expect. So it's really cool. It's kind of like they say AI is basically like when you have writer's block, or when you have a creativity blockage that you can't overcome. Okay. Okay, now it's starting to blend these two cases together. Not bad, not bad. What? Looks almost like a person over here. Yeah, okay, I like it. It's like it breaks your creativity block. Try using GIMP once, but using crack Photoshop is so hard to switch. Fair, fair. I mean, it is. It really is. It's just the interface in the end. I mean, everything in the filter space is here, and if you're used to Photoshop's kind of like convenience of basically all the predefined effects, yeah, in order for you to like recreate those effects, which is possible, you kind of have to play a lot with the built-in filters that are existent here. I'm wondering, give me a little cartoon over here. What's that gonna look like? No, that's the background. That's actually not bad. But if I do myself as a cartoon, nah, that just basically makes the lines thicker. So there's ways where I can use cartoon and then a hue saturation and then a couple of renders and maybe some no oh, this is the noise I was looking for. Like a plasma for a type of like transparent canvas to replicate cartoonification. It's just, you kind of have to mix filters in GIMP. They give you all the raw tools. That's what they give you. GIMP gives you all the raw tools you can use. But in the end, knowing how to use and how to work with, I don't even know all the tools, to be honest. I have a set of like filters that I go through very regularly, so I'm used to expecting specific details and how they're going to end up after I do the filters. But I have not created every single possible combination of filters, which is kind of how like Photoshop works. They just give you a bunch of some dude in the lab is like, oh, I combined this filter with this filter. Now it makes things look like, I don't know, a painted canvas or oil painting, all those effects that you have. And then they save that filter process. That's kind of missing the point up here. I don't like that. And then they put it on the tool canvas menu. And then you can just press one button to reapply that same effect. Let's see what else we can get. Let's up the ante here on the denoise. I love to see, kind of test out when I extrapolate the denoising strength. Let's see what the AI decides to create. Okay. No, it's just adding controllers everywhere. Like whatever shaped controller. Just controllers everywhere. Why? Maybe I just need to remove that stupid keyword. Hold okay. We already got this. Yeah, there we go. Let's do this. Let's just get away from the controller mindset because once you give it a controller, it's like, oh, I know what a controller looks like. Here's 20. Fucking AI sometimes, man. Uh, okay, what's this? I want to emphasize circuit boards though. I'm a big fan of circuit boards. I mean, I'm not complaining, but this will be some like futuristic triangular circuit board technology. Like, holy moly, it's not too crappy. I do like the extra details it's starting to add under such a high denoising strength, though. I did separate the background from the foreground a little interestingly. I'm debating if I want to continue from here. In fact, what I can do, save, and then Control Z back, save kind of my checkpoints of interest, and go further back to here. Oh, I see you. What the heck are you doing here? What is this little control? This is where that weird controller came up. Hold up. Oh, buddy, get rid of that. We don't want you here. Okay. And activate. Question mark? Oh, my hand. What's my hand doing over there now? I'm pointing. Is it connected? Nope, I am growing a third hand. Interesting. Weird. Now it's not a board anymore, it's monitors. And that. Sometimes you get weird oh, it makes me cringe. All right, so that's too much denoise. Let's emphasize streamer. I'll say person standing in front of a large circuit board on a workbench. This will be confusing for that AI, but hey, what does it know about language and reality? Okay, so that's just 45 denoise. Yeah, so I have the Invoke AI. So if you look it up, it's a community version. So Invoke AI community. I think you can get the installer through GitHub particularly, but you can probably get it. They started doing a really good job recently with a decent launcher installer. There it is. You can do for Windows, Mac, or Linux. You run this little launcher here, which I've already ran it. I should probably just open it up. But you run the Invoke Community Edition launcher, opens up this window, and this is kind of like the server that hosts it, right? So you use this as a container, and then you can connect it at, you can basically use a browser to connect to it. So I can click here and open it up directly in my browser. Or by the default, it opens up its own little window, which is kind of its own little interface. From there, kind of managing the models you have. So here's all my models that I've installed, about, I think, 80 gigabytes of models. So you need a good amount of space. Make sure you do install it on a solid state, preferably MV5 circuit drive. It's not even a solid state drive anymore. It's like a little card that you have to pop in. And you have starter models you can get from um, Invoke itself. You can also go through Hugging Face, and you may have to have a token to access some of them. But there's Cyber Realistic here. There's some other ones. 15 gigabyte. Oh, 19. Oh, it kills me. I only have 8. Flux is 12. Yeah, see, total dependency is about 12 gigs. I have that one installed, but the size is 6. So in order to use it, you need basically double of the model size. The case scenario, ideally, you want triple. So you want your computer to have at least 18 gigabytes. Uh, what else do I have? Juggernaut, I tried that before, V9. Photograph focus model. Dream Shaper, not the turbo, no. Cyber Realism, Cyber Realistic has been the best low, small standard definition type that I've used without having to like destroy my graphics card and wait forever. Especially if you kind of do like focused edits like we're doing. Like we're doing not the whole image. Sometimes we're just doing modifications on the outside, changing the seed, throwing up the denoising strength. Uh, not too shabby. Okay, we're getting into an interesting circuit form. All right, all right. I'd prefer that as a circuit. Honestly, that's interesting. It churned. In fact, I might just go straight and say, forget that weirdness. I like the diamond pattern. In fact, probably go back here. Select all copy and then just go backwards. Control Y. No. Control Shift Y. See? God, what's the reverse? Alright, that's fine. I'll take this. I think I'm just gonna go straight for this. I like this. I like the way it did this. Um, Move the layer down. Image expansion. Crop to content. Nope. Image fit canvas to layers. Yeah, there we go. Maybe even more. Image canvas size. Oh, that's pretty big canvas nonetheless. Well, you know what? That's decent in the middle. We can keep it this. We can kind of let it generate something in the corner so we don't have to fill everything in. I'll save it as a PNG because I want the transparency. It'll use transparent locations to fill in its own preference there. You can, yeah, I mean, essentially, blemishes, images, you can remove objects from images. I mean, I've used that for many cases, adding an elephant in the background, removing an elephant from the background, modifying it in many ways. Or if you manually remove it in Photoshop, you can essentially fill in the gap of what you've removed. I'll go ahead and save this version. I kind of like this. So yeah, I mean, it's in AI, it basically tries to adjust based on the prompt that you're doing and attempts to give you much more. It's very randomized, but hold on. Where did I save this? It went back to that other thing, didn't it? Yeah, I did. We'll throw it back in my workbench here. There we go. So, let's see what it's gonna fill the corners with. It's too big. I don't like it. It's gonna take a bit of time, I think. So let's do that. That. I think I should have made it smaller. Oh, see, now it's gonna take some time. Let me keep it around this value. So it's gonna currently it's gonna take the corners of transparency, and I'm just gonna give it a decent denoising strength. Create this whatever it decides in the corners to kind of fit into the image. Maybe it'll continue the diamond pattern, process a little bit extra, maybe create a totally different adjustment to the background and see what it does. Mistyped, misspelled. It's probably gonna put a wall. Looks like it just put a wall there. It's the denoising strength. The steps are okay. It's a little bit heavy on the steps. But essentially, yeah, if adding in objects to an image, removing image objects, you basically have, again, the paint. The paint's going to be your key. If you want to remove something from the background, you would use the little paintbrush, use the eyedropper, click on certain places to take the color of that space, and then kind of like if I wanted to remove myself, I would go from this corner here, start eyedropping the corners, and then painting in. Eyedrop, paint in, eyedrop, paint in, eyedrop, paint in, and that'll kind of continue the flow of the image, giving a pretty accurate representation. Why is it taking? Of what the image should look like. So this was pretty decent image that it created, but it's not working out here. Come on. Interesting. It's just kind of like a wall with a hanging. Okay, fine. But then that's only filling in the background. So let's now select the background because there's no more transparency. It's not going to fill, it's going to modify the whole image. And I don't want the whole image to change. I just want the stuff behind me. And in fact, this section here is where I cut my hair out with a path, right? So it's really raggedy and edgy. But that's another thing it can do is it can smoothen out cuts that you make from Photoshop. So instead of having to do extra detail with a Photoshop system to go into the nitty-gritty of trying to figure out how to smoothen out the hair, you can use that to, well, soften up the edges basically. Oh, but I think that's where I'll end it. That's basically my workflow. That's all I wanted to show, how to go back and forth. You can use a image editor and complement your own general tool set. Yeah, that's not bad. That's weird. With an AI, and in this case, Invoke AI. You don't have to let the AI generate the whole image for you, because maybe it's not exactly what you wanted. Maybe you want to make a thumbnail. That's pretty interesting. That's cool. What if I now cartoonify? And now I just unselect everything. No. All right. I did too many. Oh, what did I do? No, something happened. Well, something happened. Anyway, cartoonify this whole image and I'll be done. So you don't have to basically depend on the AI completely having control over the image. You can have bits and pieces that you're involved in. Is it gonna make me a chick again? Is it because everyone with long hair is a chick? That's great. Well, enjoy that. That's great. That's perfect. I'm a chick now. That's great. Cool. Because guys can't have long hair. How dandy. Anyway, thanks for dropping in. Hope you enjoyed this. It's a little bit of a different content set than normal. What? That's supposed to be a cartoonify. I just basically cartoonified. Oh, and change the background. I didn't really put circuits in here, so there was no particular guidance, right? You have to be pretty specific with your prompts. Anyway, thanks for joining. Hope you enjoyed this video. Gives you an idea of how you can apply AI to your processes. Here's again a case where I cut out my hair in that triangular form and it actually created the strand. So even if it is for very small details that you may want to really look smoothly, that's how you can use AI. You don't have to use AI to completely create fake images. You can use AI to use the mask, the in-paint mask, and select particular details that you want to adjust, like the hair matching the background, shadows on the ground, all kinds of stuff. I just kind of was playing around with some of the prompts and some of the adjustments here to give you an idea of how AI works with the given prompted system and with like something as a there it is, as a companion to GIMP or Photoshop or whatever else editing system you use. So hope this was informative. Enjoy yourselves out there. Keep creating, keep being producers. Remember, there's two types of people in this world, creators and producers. Sorry, creators and consumers. Creators and producers are the same thing. Be a creator, be a producer. Stop being a consumer of slop. At least create a little bit of slop, some entertaining slop. Don't be just a person that scrolls through a wall of slop and just basically becomes brain dead because of it. And if you do enjoy these sort of brain stimulating streams, I do Python, I do mathematics, I do all kinds of real life skill sets that you can use at this time right now just by you unlocking that skill set with my videos. So make sure you watch, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification, and yeah, I'll see you in the next stream with whatever I have in store. I think we'll be continuing on some Java workspace, JavaScript workspace content. So this was a very random designer section that I decided to go with today, but I wanted to share that with you. So like, subscribe, notifications. I'll talk to you probably later today. Thanks for joining. Thanks for